Recording in progress.
I think it's his son.
He's not talking yet.
He was.
I can hear people in the congregation.
Here's Myrna. Myrna. Who's Myrna?
Myrna? I have no idea.
Yeah. These are all the people. Susan Creeper. It's recording too.
He's talking, but I can't hear him.
Somebody turned it on.
Hmm.
Settings. Can I sit down?
That's what you can do. Somebody also said.
Yeah.
Put yourselves on mute. Okay.
Interment for Stella Tillie Levinson will be at Mount Hope. The family will gather for Shiva from today, Monday through Thursday from 2 to 4 and 7 to 9 p.m. and on Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon at 585 Bonnie Brayer Avenue. If you further wish to honor the memory of Tillie Levinson, you may do so by making donations to the Donna Levinson Memorial Fund at the Jewish Federation, Jewish Senior Life Foundation, or Temple Bethel Sidney Levinson Youth Memorial Fund. We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead, hide not your grief. Do not restrain your mourning, but remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than constant sickness. Let us not seek to understand what is too difficult for us, nor search for what is hidden, nor be preoccupied with what is beyond, for we have been shown more than we can comprehend. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good reputation and a good name endures forever. Eshet Chayil mi'imtza. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad, all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy and extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed in strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activities of her household and never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her and says, "Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all." Charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. It is now my honor to call upon family members to speak. We begin with Carol Levinson, her niece.
An era in Levinson history has come to a close. I'm the oldest grandchild of Jenny and Mo and the oldest cousin of the Levinson, Alva, Coco, and Krieger clan. Jonathan, Rich, and Carol Sue were in Tillie and Ted's wedding party. Never was there a bigger wedding party in the history of Temple Bethel. I remember all the bridesmaids being in one room, and Tillie was exquisite in her beautiful gown and tiny waistline. Tillie and Ted moved into Grandma Jenny and Mo's home for 6 months while their home on Bonnie Brae was being built. Jenny and Tillie bonded beautifully, like mother and daughter. 65 Chadbourne Road was filled with memories galore. The house was magical, and the dining room table was straight out of a movie set. It took up the whole dining room, and our entire family was able to sit around it. Our grandparents instilled strong family and Jewish values in their home. Passover, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Thanksgiving, and Hanukkah parties were celebrated there. We all have vivid memories of the Seder being conducted by Grandpa Mo at the head of the table, with the Haggadahs that I believe were the original Maxwell House service that were filled with, through the years, with coffee and wine stains. The cousins would groan after being called back after the Passover meal to complete the service, which lasted well into the night. As we grew older, we came to enjoy and appreciate and partake in the second half, with Sid and Ted making some of our favorite passages so much fun. After Grandma Jenny couldn't do the Seder anymore, Tillie and Ted took over on Bonnie Brae, and the tradition continued. Although some of us left Rochester, we have come back to the place we all call home. The Levinsons celebrated everyone's birthdays and anniversaries at Irondequoit Country Club, with Sid being the master of ceremonies, reaching out to say something about everyone who was in attendance. Our family has had its ups and downs, but we all have cherished the closeness we all have had throughout the years. All of the cousins were so blessed to have our Aunt Tillie in their lives. She was always concerned about everybody else and how they were doing. She loved looking at all the recent pictures of our families that we shared with her through the years. To quote my mom, Arlene, Tillie Levinson is the best loved woman in Rochester, New York. Rest in peace, my dear Aunt Tillie. Everybody is waiting for you to have a wonderful celebration.
Thank you, Carol. It is now my honor to call upon Tillie's beloved granddaughters, Juliana and Mia.
There was Tillie the wife, mother, community member, volunteer. The list goes on. But to us, she was just our Grandma T. Nothing else existed when she was with us. When I think back on my 26 years with her as my grandma, what sticks out is consistency. She was always there, never missing a concert, even if it was just a bunch of fourth graders playing hot cross buns. Holiday, play, again, even if it was just a bunch of eighth graders who couldn't sing or act. Or graduation. We always held to the same traditions. I always admired how she was never the loudest in the room, but always commanded respect. Even though I left Rochester for college years ago, her passing leaves a hole in my daily routine, calling her while I took a walk, stopping by her house for a goodbye before I hit the road. She was always there, without fail, all the time. She made everyone feel at home. She could take a small event or happening and make you feel like it was the most important event in the world. A lesson that I take from the way she lived her life is to celebrate everything, always let people know how much you love them, and that little actions repeated have a massive impact. How lucky am I to call myself her granddaughter, to have felt her love.
I want to share with you all my perspective on Grandma Tillie's life, which is, of course, as my grandmother. She was such a present and loving grandmother to Juliana and me, and I know that being our grandma brought her so much joy. So even though now is a very emotional time, I feel it's important to speak to this part of her identity. Grandma Tillie, or Grandma T, as we would also call her, never missed an opportunity to spend time with us, support us, bake for us, or remind us just how loved we were. When I was younger, she would ask me all the time, "Who loves you?" In this little game, it was my job to then list out everyone I could think of while she beamed. It was so important to her that we knew how loved we were. It was also always so clear how much she loved spending time with us. I remember all these little yet special things, like getting to pick candy or gum from the designated drawer in the kitchen before we left their house, playing a made-up game to see how fast or slow we could make a left out of our neighborhood before there was a light at the corner, and her letting me try on her lipsticks and play with her very fancy perfume bottles. Nothing ever seemed like a bother. Everything was a joy. As my sister and I got older, though the things we did together changed, her presence, love, and support never did. She went to everything that she could, and when we were away, she would call us, send letters, and rejoice over any photos and videos we showed her when we were back in town. My Grandma T was extremely family-oriented, a value which she instilled in my sister and me. Family gatherings and time together were a priority to her. In addition to being family-oriented, she was also extremely social, as whenever we went anywhere in the Jewish community together or were at the club, we couldn't walk more than 2 feet without getting stopped by someone or her stopping someone else to say hello. She would always proudly introduce me as her granddaughter. In more recent years, when her walking slowed down and I would always walk with her, my arm linked in hers, people would take notice of us more often. They would tell me how precious she is and how wonderful it is we're spending time together. This past winter break, when I was home, I started taking her to Silver Sneakers exercise class at the JCC. Despite struggling a lot with her short-term memory at this point, right away she had many friends in the class and people who were eager to assist. Again, I had people telling me how lucky I was to have her, how kind and sweet she was, and how lucky I am to have her as my grandma. But the thing is that no one needed to tell me. On my own, I saw what a tremendous woman my grandmother was, and I love her so much, and I'm so grateful that she was my grandma. She freely and frequently told me, "I love you." And though I will miss hearing her say that and getting to say it back to her, I feel her love always with me. This past October, for one of my classes in grad school, I needed to write a life history paper, and I chose to write it about her. Because I was in Los Angeles, we did it over Zoom, and I recorded the entire conversation. In a moment of reflection upon some of the challenges she's faced in her life and the unique struggles of aging, she said, "But we keep on going, that's all we have to do." Grandma T, that's exactly what I plan to do, and though some days it may be harder than others, I know I will always have your love and strength with me.
Thank you, Juliana and Mia. It is now my honor to call upon Wendy Howitt, daughter-in-law, and Jeffrey Levinson, Tillie's son.
There's something I'd like to share with you that only I can share. Tillie's extended family won't tell you this, nor can her countless friends near and far. I am the sole person who can say that Tillie Levinson was a wonderful mother-in-law. And it's my honor to tell you so. Like her given name, Stella, she was truly stellar. Believe me, if they gave out awards for mother-in-laws, she would have had a trophy room. We all know mother-in-laws can have tough reputations. Some may criticize intentionally or unintentionally. Some may interfere, freely providing unsolicited advice or being difficult in any number of ways. Not my mother-in-law. From the delight she took in the multiple wedding showers her many friends bestowed upon us as a couple, to the fact that she never asked when we were going to have children for the first 5 years of our marriage, which is almost unheard of. Then the absolute delight she expressed when we decided to start our family. She was always unequivocally there to cheer us on, encourage us, and above all, celebrate and delight in the big and small joyful moments in life. To say she adored her granddaughters to the moon and back is not an exaggeration. She would never turn down an opportunity to spend time with them, being Grandma T or just T before the kids could pronounce the whole title. This became part of her identity, one she wore like a badge of honor. She never tired of talking about them with me or hearing the most minute details of their lives. Year-round, there was a schedule of activity to be enjoyed with the girls. In the 30-plus years we've been married, Tillie consistently praised to the highest every single brunch, dinner, party, or holiday she shared in our home. Everything was delicious, she'd always say, as we were still sitting around the dining room table, and she would say it at least once again before she left. And without fail, I'd receive a call or phone message the next day telling me how much she'd enjoyed being together, and again, that everything had been, to quote, just wonderful. Anytime she was in our home, she made me feel sincerely appreciated for my efforts. And though she was family, she always knew how to be a perfect guest. This is who she was to me, with her warm smile, beautifully coiffed white hair, and always the perfect shade of lipstick to complement her gorgeous skin tone. She found things to be grateful for each day, choosing to stay positive, because why not if you have a choice? Appreciative, because it's how we show others that we care. And loving, because in the end, it's all that matters.
I'm going to take you back to the beginning, because you've heard about the more recent years of my mom. Stella Elva Levinson was born in 1932, a child of immigrant parents, Hyman and Anna Cohen Elva, from what used to be Yugoslavia. They were Sephardic Jews. Sarah and David were her older siblings. Rachel was her younger sister. At a young age, Dave gave her the nickname of Tillie, and it stuck. She grew up off of Joseph Avenue on Morris Street. She fondly remembered going to the Baden Street settlement after school, dancing and singing as a child. As a teenager, she volunteered and worked weekends at the JY on Andrew Street. Her father had a candy and tobacco store at the corner of James and Broadway near East Avenue. She took a bus, she told me, 2 or 3 times a week after school to help him in the store, stocking shelves, scooping ice cream, selling candy, and would come home with him when it closed at night. They all loved their father. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1948, Dave ran the store until it closed in 1950 and then went to the Korean War. Even though Mom went to Benjamin Franklin High School and Dad went to Brighton High School, they met at a high school fraternity sorority dance their senior year. They started dating in 1951 and continued through my dad's college years while Mom worked at an insurance agency downtown. After college, Dad committed to 2 years in the Army, but he also committed to marrying my mom when he got out. On August 25th, 1957, they were married in the old Bethel Shul on Park Avenue, but the reception for over 600 people was held in the auditorium behind you. And after living with Jenny and Mo for 5 or 6 months, in January 1958, they moved into 585 Bonnie Bray Avenue, where she would remain for the last 64 years. Mom was a homemaker and much more. I was born in 1959, Donna was born in 1962. She was devoted to both of us. Nursery school at Bethel, Pioneer Day Camp in Camp Seneca Lake in the summer, school events during the year, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, musicals, and dances. She supported us in our sports, me with golf and Donna in tennis. Most importantly, she supported my father as he worked his way up in his career at Star Supermarkets. She was by his side at many out-of-town meetings and conventions. Mom made lifelong friends at these meetings, even though they only saw each other 3 or 4 times per year. My dad would tell me my mother was so well liked at these conventions that vendors made sure she would always win a prize. Mom and Dad were both very social with a large circle of friends. Most every Saturday night that I remember in the 60s and 70s, they were out for dinner, a party, or in a Run-to-Quake Country Club social event. They were truly in love. My mother's sweetness and kindness offset Dad's large personality and occasional gruffness. Mom enjoyed playing her 9-hole golf game on Tuesdays for many years at ICC. When I was 10, she would let me play in her weekly game during the summer. I eventually caught the golf bug hard. Like many others, she also took up tennis in the early 70s and played for many years at ICC in Midtown. Donna played with Mom, but elevated her game in high school to become #1 in the varsity team. Perhaps the most significant thing I learned from my mom was the importance of family and friends. Mom was always taking my sister and me to visit relatives or go to parties on both the Levinson and Elva sides. So many memories of these visits remain with me to this day. Many of her friends were from high school, and they all remain close throughout the years, and some are here today. Mom was a volunteer with many organizations, but mainly Sisterhood of Temple Bethel, Hadassah, Jewish Federation, and the JCC. At the JCC, she was on the board in the 70s. At the Federation, she was an active member of Women's Philanthropy as a Lion of Judah, and was proud that for decades she never missed fundraising on Super Sunday. It was an opportunity to talk with people she knew or did not know. She loved to welcome newcomers both at the JCC and Temple. She wanted to know more about everyone she met and exuded empathy in all her relationships. She was a sweet, kind, and gracious. She was the best mom a son could ask for.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Jeff. Embe Israel, a Jewish mother in Israel has a special role assigned by God and history. She is to carry not only her own affairs in life, but also she is entrusted with the traditions of our people. To the Jewish woman is assigned the task of creating a Jewish home, replete with values of Judaism, values that should permeate the life of her family and transform the individual family members into an harmonious whole. The Jewish mother is meant to be the focal point of a beautiful family life, whose hallowing influence would be felt by children and children's children in whatever they did and wherever they went. After listening to Wendy and Jeffrey when we met, I don't have a doubt in my mind that Tillie was an Embe Israel, a Jewish mother in the traditional sense, fulfilling the task assigned to her by God and by history. As we heard, she was sweet, kind, personable, positive in every way. A mother that was involved, that taking kids to Temple Bethel and then to their activities in school was not a burden, but a privilege. And not just that, her family was important, but her husband's family was important, and her friends from high school were also very important. Wendy told me on Friday that she never said any spiteful or sarcastic or backhanded remark against anyone. Because if she didn't have to say something nice or she thought differently, she will remain silent. That is very unique to her character. Jeff told me that she was an individual who was able to enjoy someone else's joy. Then when a good friend had family visiting or there was a birth of another child in that family, she would rejoice on that happiness. Their happiness was her happiness. And you can attest to that. You can see this in the many pictures and cards that were left in her refrigerator. And she immortalized those moments that were important to her. Without a doubt, and Wendy alluded here beautifully, the apple of her eye were her grandchildren, Juliana and Mia. Life for Tillie revolved around their schedule. When can I see them? She would ask. When are they going to be in town? And them themselves, Juliana and Mia, took pride in the grandmother, felt close to her, and she was formative for their own personalities. But a great Jewish mother is not made out of the blue. Most likely she was nursed by her parents, Sephardic tradition from Monastir, that place that was between Rome and Constantinople, where the fort was built. An impressive Jewish Sephardic community was developed. Sometimes in the hands of the Greeks and some other times in the hands of the Turks. That background, in addition to choosing a life mate and finding in Ted that wonderful, loving husband. And people have said that Ted truly loved Tillie. That formed her as a human being. And she was able to dedicate her life to others. But she had also time for herself. And though he suffered the passing of her daughter and husband, she moved forward with a beautiful smile, with a pleasant face, and a cheerful lifestyle. She would say, "We all shall live and be well." Indeed, the Almighty granted her great health. She never stepped foot on a hospital until 4 weeks ago. She went to the doctor. She had issues, but she continued living independently until 4 weeks ago. She drove her car until 4 weeks ago. Jeffrey told me it was about 900 miles a year, from Levinson to Wegmans to the club and to her hairdresser appointments every week. But those were enough for her. And her personality was so special that she was able to develop that even further, as we heard when she participated in the program Shalom Rochester, meeting new people that came into town. And she was genuinely interested in your life when you're coming to Rochester for the first time. It was an opportunity to learn about people, to connect, to practice her incredible social skills. She loved doing that. She loved being useful and helpful to others. It was the perfect role for her. We have heard about the incredible social life they had, and Jeffrey told me this with amazement. 47 Saturday nights a year. I mean, that's very impressive, because you have to take out the holidays and other things. But I wasn't sure if that was good for you to be left alone on a Saturday night. Perhaps you miss your parents, and that was important to you. Even though she was incredibly social, she was social without the latest gadgets and the latest programs. She was not on Facebook. She was not on Instagram. She did not use a cell phone. People, you can be social in the 21st century by staying home and using your home phone, the one that doesn't go with you everywhere. And she loved writing cards, handwritten cards to friends for birthdays, for Rosh Hashanah. She loved doing that. She wouldn't dwell on the passing of her beloved friends. She concentrated in the positive. Her Sephardic background allowed her to speak Ladino to her mother and father, I believe. Maybe that got lost in the family, but hey, if you know Spanish, you're halfway there. But she had special foods, the bollos, the borrecas, the jara, the pastel, all those things that were important to her. Just one minor detail that I thought it was different is that she was unable to bring the Sephardic traditions of Passover into her house. I guess she met Ted, Ashkenazic background, and saying, okay, that's it. We're going to have an Ashkenazic Seder. As a Sephardic rabbi, I would have liked to see that Sephardism going forward. She was a big part of our lives. She was a big part of people's lives. She contributed to society. She counseled if you wanted to hear her comments. She assisted. She was there as a support to her husband, children, grandchildren, daughter-in-law, and friends. She passed away this week at age 90, peacefully, surrounded by family, predeceased by her husband, love of her life, Ted Levinson, beloved daughter Donna, and her parents, Hyman and Anna Alva. Alva means white. Siblings, Sarah Uriel and David Alva, survived by her son Jeffrey, daughter-in-law Wendy, grandchildren Juliana and Mia, sister Rachel Weinstein, and many other relatives and friends. We can finally say to Tillie that what was entrusted to you, the responsibility of creating a Jewish home, you did it with excellency. You did that with grace, with love, with commitment. In your hands was entrusted not just the physical well-being of your family, but the spiritual life for the next generation. And it was to this sublime task that you, Tillie, devoted your entire life. No better summary for the life of Tillie that we can think of than to say that her family considered themselves blessed because she was their mother and grandmother and mother-in-law and friend. Tehei nishmata tzrura b'tzrura chayim. May the soul of Stella bat Chaim v'Chana be bound up in the bonds of life eternal. And let us say all together, Amen. We now ask you to please kindly rise for the memorial prayer. El male rachamim shochen bamromim hametz menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina b'malot kedoshim utehorim kezohar harakia mazirim lenishmat Stella bat Chaim v'Chana she'alcha le'olama בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה, ענה בעל הרחמים, אז תראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר